Hello! I've got a lovely episode for you today. I'm handing the channel once again over to my very talented husband Matt, who has very kindly agreed to create a set of 3 paintings for the guest bedroom of my doll's house. So Matt, it's over to you.
Hello! So today Julie has asked me to do 3 very small paintings for her of waterlilies. So they're going to be 25mm by 25mm or 1 inch square. Going to be 3 in total, and she has printed off 3 photos here of the sort of things she wants in the actual paintings. So it will be a little bit of a challenge with them being so small, but it should be quite good fun. So the actual paper I'll be using is a 300 GSM watercolour pad, and I've just basically marked it out in the 3 little squares here. I'll be using a 4H pencil, quite a hard pencil, because then you can get some nice detail without actually going too dark with it. A really fine detail paintbrush, it's in such a small little area, and a number 4 paintbrush as well, just for the main areas to block in colour. I'll be using just standard acrylics. Got my white acrylic there, use quite a lot of white, and just these standard colours. You get these from many art shops. I think Works I got these from. They weren't that expensive. A mixing palette to mix all our colours with, some water and a cup of tea. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so first of all we're going to use our little reference pictures here and do a little sort of copy of the actual design just in here. We're going to find our centre mark. See if I can move the camera over a little bit so you can see this painting first. We'll sketch them all out first and then we'll start blocking in the colour. So there's our centre mark there. So I really want to just try and sketch out a little water lily type design. Almost like a flower sort of design. The petals coming out the back there. And then the other one will be sort of here. It will be slightly abstract-ish with it being so small, but we'll try and get as much detail in as we can. I hope you can see this on camera. And a slightly bigger flower just here. Then we'll do some water reflections and things like that as well. Just basically try and add a little more detail, even though it's on such a small scale. Okay, and we'll have some leaves down here, some greenery. If you saw the other video I did of the actual water lilies, it was quite a pale looking painting, so we're going to try and stick to that sort of look. I'm going too dark. Okay, so that's a basic layout of that one. Just give you a look there. So you've got your 3 flowers and some greenery here. A few little leaves, and we'll do some little slightly darker areas to try and add a bit of depth. Okay, so let's do the next one, which is just going to be the water lily straight on. And the centre mark roughly is about there. That'll be the centre of the flower. And we just build it up petal by petal. It's quite a little bit easier on this because it's straight on, so I'm going to worry about perspective or different angles. And the petals behind there. And got the green there. that slightly bigger, I think. Again with a little bit more on a set of petals, I think, just to make it fill the actual canvas a little bit. We can always adjust this when we do the paint. This is basically to give ourselves a rough outline of what we're actually going to paint. And the next one is going to be the one from the side with the reflection. So this one should be quite nice to do with a reflection in it. So again, let's move you across. Find our centre mark, around about there. Then we'll roughly do a sort of water line through the centre there. And then I think we'll sit it in the water. There'll be that leaf there, should be pretty much that one. And then we'll build our leaves up. Okay, so be something like that. Let me just bring that over a little bit so it's more central. Bring a bigger leaf in there like that, I think. And then we'll have the reflection underneath. The greenery there and there. Okay, so that's the basic layout of the 3 paintings there. So what we're going to do now is mix up some paint. We're going to use a very basic palette, just stick to some light pinks, light greens, maybe a little bit of yellow to highlight the centre of the actual lilies, but try and keep our palette as simple and as pale as possible to try and match in with the other painting that we did previously. So as you can see, I've laid out all my colours here. Got quite a lot of white because it's going to be quite a pale colour, and I like to use the white as a blending medium as well. I've got some bright yellow, some orange yellow, some crimson red and some scarlet red, cobalt blue and cerulean blue, and then I've got some viridian green, some sap green and some olive green, just all put on the palette there ready to go. So first of all, I'm just going to use a little bit of white over the entire area as a base for all the other colours, and it will give me something to blend into. It'll also tone down the actual pencil marks. Like so. So you can still see our actual design underneath. I'm going to attempt to do all 3 at the same time so I get all my colours the same. I'm not going too thick with it, just a nice light coating. Smooth it in. I'm going to go with the flowers first, I think, so I'm going to use a little bit of white. I'm going to use a tiny bit of crimson, I think. So I'm going to use the actual paintbrush. Let me see if I can get in closer. Use the actual paintbrush end as petals. So each brush stroke will become a petal. Then we can add some details, some shade into this as we go along. So I'm not actually fully, if you can see on the paintbrush there, I'm not actually fully mixing the paint. I'm leaving it slightly unmixed, so you get that sort of almost marble effect with the paint. Start with the other ones first. And the outer ones, just touching them in, because these will actually be, on the actual reference picture, will be slightly lighter on the outer side. So we can even highlight those with some white. And then the pink on the last one. This will be the reflection, so there will be slightly less detail in this reflection, and then we'll do some blending to make it look as if it's in the water. So now I think we're going to go down to the finer brush, and it's just a modelling detail brush. It's very fine, so we're going to add a little bit more of the crimson to the pink just to darken the pink up a little bit. Again, not fully mixing it, so it's slightly unmixed on the actual brush. I'm just going to try and add a little bit of detail to the centres of the flowers or lilies. Now if you ever make a mistake or do something you don't like, you can always let it dry and overpaint it. Brilliant things about these acrylics, they dry ever so quick. It's not like oils where you have to wait days for it to dry. You can just paint over it within minutes or so. This one is really dark in the centre. A little bit more of the red, crimson red to that, I think, just to darken that very centre up. Try and then blend that out, give you that detail there, shading around the flowers, around the petals. This one has some darker areas behind. We can add more detail as well as we go along. We've got that green leaf in there to go in there as well. Clean our brush, and I think we'll go back to the white, and then we'll just use that as a blending and highlighting medium just to bring out a little bit of detail if we can. Again in the centre one. Maybe a little bit too much there, so we can blend that in with a bit of pink. Come back to the pink and just blend that back in. Just going to blend that bit of white in with just a plain paintbrush with no actual paint on it. So not too much white on there, I think. Just blend that in better. These will actually pop a lot more as well when we get the green in the background as well. So I think what I'm doing now is do the yellow centres. So I'm just going to use some bright yellow first. Just dab that in. No yellow on that one. No Santa, you can't see that one. And then a little bit of the orange yellow, very, very small bit, hardly any on the paintbrush at all. And then we're just going to try and do some little small tiny dots just to add a bit of depth there, a little bit detailed if it's the centre of the actual lily. So I think now we're going to add a little bit of the background green. So I'm going to go back to our number 4 paintbrush. Again, use quite a bit of the white, mix in a little bit of the lighter green, just a very tiny bit. And then we'll go light green on this corner here. Again, not fully mixed the paint, as you can see. So it gives you that marbled look, as if you're putting thousands of different brush strokes in, but really only putting one in. And then what I want to do now is add a little bit of sap green to our colour, just to darken that up. Again, not fully mixed. And then we're just going to go in very, very gently around the flowers. Just give them that bit of depth along that leaf there. Again, same with this one. Start with a lighter green first. Again, not fully mixed. And then the darker green back here, I think. May even just add a touch more sap green, I think, to this one. I don't want it to look too dark, because then it won't be in keeping with the other painting. Dark there. So basically getting all our colours blocked in, and then we'll go in and do the fine detail. Okay, so the next one. Very pale green on this. It's going to go straight up and down to give it the illusion of distance and depth, and then we'll go slightly darker along the waterline, blend that up. There was a green leaf just in the middle there, wasn't there? So we just do that. Green under there as well. Okay, so I think now I'm going to use a little bit of blue, very pale blue. So again, we'll mix up quite a bit of white, add in a touch of the cerulean blue, give very pale blue, and then we're just going to go in and see if we can just add some strokes this way to give it an illusion of water underneath. I think otherwise it's just going to look green. A slight bit of water on that one. It's more of a reflection because this is actually just sap on its leaves. I'm blending that in as well. And across that way. Give the illusion of water and reflection. Maybe a little bit at the top just there and blend that down into that green. Okay, so that's our colours basically blocked in now. Now we can go in and add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to start adding some detail now, just with a little bit more of the actual sap green, try and make a little bit of shadow underneath here, just underneath each flower. Just to give it a bit more depth. Not too much, it's little dots. Hopefully that should make the pink of the flowers pop out a little bit more as well. We'll be adding a little bit more detail to the flowers as well. I think we'll just do a little bit under that water lily there. that one there. And then we'll go back in with our blue. Again, this will just be straight cobalt blue. I'm going to go across with the actual paint there, just to try and add the illusion of water. Doesn't matter if this is a little bit dark, so then we're going to go over the top with the white. Blend that in. A bit of blue in there as well. And then we'll get a straight white as a mixing medium and just go over the top in stripes. Not mixing it in too much. And that hopefully have the effect of making it look like water reflections, ripples in the water. Okay, so the battery's now flashing, so we're going to change that, and then I think we'll top up the old tea, and then we'll add a bit more detail. So I think I am going to just tone this down a little bit more, with a bit of the pale blue just through here. Again, not fully mixed. A little bit too much there. Blend it in. All the lines a bit there as well, just so it's easier to actually frame the paintings. And I'm just going to take some of the cobalt blue, do some very fine lines through. Okay, I think you can see now it's just giving a little bit more depth to the actual painting, giving it a bit more detail, a bit of perspective to it. Okay, now some green, again just a pale green, so lots of white mixed in with a tiny bit of the emerald green. A bit of the sap green as well, mixed in with the white, darken that there. I'm just going to use my paintbrush clean and dry and just blend in these colours here. Now I think I want to add some highlights to the actual flowers, try and make them stand out a little bit more, so I'm just going to use straight white and then my detail brush and just try, if I can, add some highlights to the flower ends, or the petal ends on the lilies. I can just blend that in there. Use a little bit more of the pink just to blend that in. A little bit of dark as well. Just going to add a little bit more of the darker blue. Very, very small areas if I can. Just to try and highlight the pinkness of the actual lilies. And add a bit of shadow. This is just the cobalt blue I'm using here. It's underneath the petals. So I may come back and do some more white highlights on this one. But for now, I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, so first of all I want to actually try and add a little bit of depth and shadow underneath the actual petals. I'm just going in here with some olive green. Then we'll blend that out with a little bit of sap green and a little bit of the emerald, just to blend them in together. Get a little bit of shadow there. And then I think I'll just go over the top with a little bit of white. Tiny bit again on the paintbrush, hardly any at all on there. And I'll just blend that in to make it look like there's some reflections on there. Okay, I want to add quite a lot of detail to the actual flower, I think, so I'm not happy with how that's looking. You can't actually see the actual petals on it, so we're going to change that in a bit, but we'll get the background on first. We'll just do a little tiny bit of the cobalt blue as a shadow. Okay, just hopefully it makes the flower stand out a little bit more, or the lily stand out a bit more. Blue there, and then we'll just blend that in, I think, with a little bit of white. Okay, so now I think I'm trying to add a little bit more detail to the actual flower. Try and make the petals a little bit more petal-like. So again, I'll mix up some white, a little bit of crimson red to make a nice pale pink. Let me see if we can go in and add some petal shapes. And then we'll go in again with the darker pink in a second. This bit a bit more flower-like, and then I'm going to go over the top of that with just the pure crimson red, just around the edge here. Add a little bit more detail to that as well, and very gently, small brush strokes. A bit more white. Okay, and again, like I said before, we'll come in now when this is dry with just some pure white to add some highlights. I think I'll just add a little bit more of the yellow, a few dots. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one for now. We'll come back to that and add some more highlights and white areas to the actual leaves here, just make them stand out a little bit. We'll continue with this one on the far side. Right, okay, so again, I'm going to go in with the cobalt blue, just along the bottom here, a bit of shadow. Very similar colour palette to what we'd used on the other painting in the guest bedroom. So I'm going to try and keep it in keeping with that theme. I don't want to actually add any more colour to the actual reflection. So I'm just going to go over with some pure white. Go over the actual painting. So, just to add almost reflections again, ripples in the paint. Ripples in the water. Something like that. I think I'm just going to go in underneath there with the dark green and a bit of shadow. And just do a few lines going up as if it's reeds in the background, and then we'll blend those over with our white. Clean our paintbrush, a little bit of white, and then we'll just gently tone that down. A bit of white across the actual reflection of the actual lily. That one's quite nice. Quite like the reflection in that. Again, add a little bit of white to the ends of the actual petals. So far, I think I like this one the best. Just add a bit more depth there to the petals. And then a little bit more white, just to tone that down. And again, when that's dry, we'll go in and do some highlights. So to finish off the paintings, I added some highlights using paint. And a white gel ink pen. So there we have the completed paintings. I'm quite happy with the way they've turned out, so hopefully Julie will like them too.
So thank you so much to Matt for doing those for me. I'm really pleased with them and I think they're going to look lovely in the guest bedroom. So I'm going to frame these and then I'm going to have them hanging beside the door. And I think I said in an earlier episode that I was going to build a little unit to go there, a little lingerie chest, maybe 3 or 4 drawers, and then I'll have them hanging above there. And I'd like to do an episode where I add some more accessories to this room. I've got lots of ideas of little bits and pieces that we can add in there. I want to make some suitcases, maybe another little travel bag to go on top of the wardrobe and things like that. A little bit more or some more toiletries for the dressing table there. And of course then we've got to make that little chest, which will be a separate tutorial. But that will all be coming soon on the channel. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Thank you to Matt for doing that for me. So that's it for today. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.